Hey everybody, we're back again with comedian Tim Hoffman. Tim Hoffman is a proprietor at the Laughshack. That's
Laughshack Comedy Club.
Laughshack Comedy Club. So the Laughshack Comedy Club, it has its interesting origins because it's kind of moved, but it started out. Tell us more about where it did start out.
This Laughshack Comedy Club started in 2013 in my basement on Leland Street in Portland, Deering Center. And we had 22 shows, one show a month. And then we moved to, at the same time, we moved to 212 Brown Street in Westbrook and also 36 Market Street in Portland.
Yeah.
So we expanded to a couple different towns, and then I would have road shows as well.
Okay.
So started out in my basement in 2013. We moved to a real club in 2015, and it's still going on.
Yeah, and that club is the Lincoln's, right? Lincoln's kind of speakeasy downtown. A lot of young people know it. You kind of got to go through a couple ways to get in there. But it started out in your basement?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And but it was in your basement for a while, then it was at Lincoln's. Now you're out in the Gorham area,
We
right?
moved to Gorham 3 years ago, Luigi, and we got 2 acres of property, and we have a small barn. So my wife said, "Why don't you start doing shows in the barn?"
Yeah.
And it didn't take much for me to get started again.
It's kind of like in a Field of Dreams where they say, if you build it, they will come.
That's exactly right.
Right,
That's
exactly
what our
right.
mantra was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It wasn't easy when we were at Lincoln's originally, when we started that room, because it was empty, and then we built the bar and brought the show in, and we had to train the crowd to be quiet and listen to the show and come to the show.
This was at Lincoln's.
At Lincoln's.
So you were like an early guy involved in the whole project of Lincoln's.
It wasn't there before.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Me, Mark, and Nate all opened that place.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. And the idea of it was a kind of a speakeasy, a little bit kind of underground.
They modeled it after my basement because we didn't advertise for my basement shows because it was invitation only because it was at a house.
Okay.
And so we didn't give out the directions publicly. You had to know somebody to find a way. And then we had a little light that we would put outside of our door, and we'd change the light bulb to let people know that there was a show. And then people would come in, and it was a blast. And Lincoln's kind of went with that spirit in almost the don't tell. They call them don't tell comedy shows
Don't
now.
tell,
We did
yeah.
don't tell comedy shows before they had don't tell comedy shows.
Okay. Yeah. Like the Comedy Cellar in New York and places that are a little under the radar.
Comedy Cellar is a great club.
Yeah. So, and Lincoln's now, they still don't take credit cards, right? They're still cash only type of place?
They're cash only.
So how did you get into comedy? Are you from Maine or?
I'm from Central Maine. This is a long story. My first time doing comedy was in 2001 at the Portland Comedy Connection.
Yeah.
I did contests down there, and I didn't know anything about comedy. I thought every time you went on stage, it had to be a different set and no repeat jokes. So I didn't do well in the contest. And then I did the contest a couple different years and really started going to Boston, open mics, and any other shows I could get to.
So at first you thought you have to like figure it out as you get up there, or everything's got to be new, and then kind of how many years did it take for you to kind of figure out exactly what your navigation system on that was?
Many years.
Many years, yeah.
Many years, because there wasn't a lot of options for local stand-up at the time. There's a couple open mics, and I didn't really know how to get to the next level from open mics, how to get booked on shows at the club, besides just hanging out at the club, doing the contest, and bothering people.
Right, which is what you always hear as part of the thing, is like you got to be one of the boys, hang out, drink a little bit with everybody, or just socialize. But do you find like in those days, because I used to go to the Comedy Connection back in the day, this is going to sound strange to know if it's really better that there isn't that one club, but is it better, because you're saying there wasn't a lot of other options, like one Comedy Connection might not be as good as 10 or 12 different kind of pop-ups, or comedy here and comedy there? It's a good question that I don't know.
It is a good question.
Yeah.
I don't really know, Luigi. This was before Facebook. This was like
That's true.
Kind of MySpace era where you could get booked on shows just by having a MySpace profile. So it took me a lot of years to get connected to other people who were doing stand-up, to find out, oh, we can travel to different towns to put on a show, and we don't have to always be at the Comedy Connection. So I think that's where all the comics start, is they they don't get enough opportunities for work, so they create their own shows.
Yeah, and that's a good question. Also, in the spirit of how I've seen now with modern comedy, how long's that been going on where a lot of the comics that I've known and have featured on this show, they'll have their own rooms. And so that's kind of what the Laugh Shack is. In a sense, it's your room because you're tasked with organizing it. You're booking all the folks. You have to advertise. How long's that been going on as a thing?
Well, I did a couple house shows before I created my house show. And when I created my house show, I went all in with spotlights and a good sound system and a decent stage. We have a much better one out at the place now in Gorham.
Yeah.
But what was the question again? Sorry.
Like how long has it been the kind of modern style of comedy where comedians figure out ways to be their own comedy club? So in the old days of what we knew of, it was kind of like you had that guy and he's the manager of the comedy club and that was the place. And you guys were all at their kind of beck and call. It's almost very similar to now where every comedian used to be kind of like competing to get that one spot on Johnny Carson or things like that you'd always hear about. And now all the comedians have their own podcast. So you become kind of the master of your own domain in a sense.
It's out of control. I mean, and I think it's like almost a critical mass where
it's kind of the bubble.
There's
right?
not enough shows for everybody to go around, so they end up branching out and starting their own shows at restaurants and bars and stuff like that. And
that does sound like, by the way you're saying it, that there's some good and bad of that because it can kind of dilute the whole product. If there's going to be a show everywhere, right? You don't know the good ones from the bad ones too, or one that just started. And
I guess you're right about that. I mean, I try not to go to bad shows. I try to be on good shows, but I also do try to get on a lot of shows.
Yeah, and that goes back to the idea of doing the reps. And it's kind of what we were just talking about with Randy Carver, whereas even in wrestling, for example, it's like you've got to perform in front of people and just get better at it because it's an instinctive thing. So what is the audience out there? What should we know about the upcoming shows? You got one coming up soon? Or?
Well, the shows that I put on now at my house, I don't advertise again because it's at a private residence, so it's really it's who I can invite and who I think is exceptionally cool to come out, and then his friends of friends, and there's always new people out there.
Well, we'll show a little clip of it.
Yeah.
Just to kind of get people an idea. It is, by invitation only, but we get a chance to talk a little bit about what you're going to be up to other than just the Laugh Shack.
Yeah, I got some other stuff going on.
Okay, so let's take a look at that clip. We'll be right back.
Please keep it going for the very funny Tim Hoffman.
How's everybody doing tonight? I moved out to the country recently. First thing that I did when I moved out to the country, I built a compost pile. Second thing I did, listen to my neighbors complain about my compost pile. They said, this is going to attract animals. I said, that's good because I'm trying to start a zoo. I'm going to monetize my property. The third thing that I did when I moved to the country is I bought a solar panel, and it's just strong enough to power my wife's vibrator and our espresso machine. I point it towards the east, and we call it the morning grind.
We're back here with Tim Hoffman. We want to talk about what you have upcoming.
Yes.
You have some competitions, which is kind of an interesting thing. I was thinking of, there was Portland or Maine's funniest comedian that was pretty recently.
New England's funniest comedian.
New England's funniest comedian. Yeah,
I was a part of that.
Okay.
I made some finals. It was
That's
a blast.
cool. Yeah, all right.
At Aura, and I did the Portland Comedy Festival.
Right.
I worked as a volunteer for those guys and helped chaperone some comics around and gave people a tour of the town. Try to show comics good time, and there was some good shows there.
Portland, is it me or does Portland need to have its own new kind of comedy connection? I know Empire was doing something with it, but I feel like it would be good to have a place that is just a comedy club.
I think you're right. I mean, that's out of my control.
Right.
Some friends of mine and I, because when I start these shows in my house, I'm limited by so many factors. I can't really advertise. So I can't invite the general public, but there are prototype clubs. Just like my basement was a prototype for Lincoln's, what I'm doing now is another prototype for another club.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the perfect setup. We had Al Ganakar, who's been on our show a few times. He was on. I asked him the same question. He said, well, I'm not going to do it. And he said, Nick and Leonard, the River Comics, who we've had on a lot of shows, he thought those are the guys that are more business-minded.
They have a good thing going on in Lewiston.
In Lewiston,
Auburn.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right out there. But even that's at the Craft Brew Underground a lot of time. Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where Portland has all these other avenues. I've seen some karaoke bars like the East Ender that opened up that are all just karaoke, and those do well. I mean, I think there's a critical mass nowadays where, you know, you really could have a club, and that's kind of what you're doing. You're working it out a little bit there, and maybe it'll come back into Portland.
And I'm working with a couple different people. We're looking at locations, trying to find a place that we can rent, maybe temporarily, that we can do pop-ups at, or some place that we could rent more long-term. But there's roadblocks there, and there's a lot of different people to work with.
Yeah, and one of the roadblocks, I mean, there's a bubble in rental prices in Portland. It's insane these days. So why don't you plug a couple of these competitions so they can see you?
Sure.
You know, because I think now that we saw the reel and some of the stuff from the actual Laugh Shack, I think they'll want to see you live.
Sure, I love doing competitions because to me, comedy is a sport, and so I like to hang out with my my colleagues, if you will, and just have fun. So I'm doing the Bricks and Bridges Comedy Festival in Lewiston. I'm doing the Lost Valley Laugh Off at Lost Valley Ski Resort in
That's
November.
cool, right? Yeah.
I was just down in Middleborough, Massachusetts for a competition, and I was on a game show last week in Somerville.
Yeah.
That was fun.
You've got game show energy in a good way.
Thanks,
Very high, good energy, high energy. We got a new game show coming up, Game Night, that we used to have on there. We'll bring you back for that. I think you'd have a good time.
I'd love to.
So look for you at all of these competitions. Also, your website.
Well, I don't know if I have a website.
Your social media,
my
your
social
Facebook.
media. I have Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. And let's see. Yeah,
But you do have to remember it's Tim Hoffman, HOFMANN.
Put that up on the screen.
We will. We'll have Warren put that up on there.
Yeah.
Look you up on Facebook, Instagram, everywhere else.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, check out a comedy show anywhere you can. And if it's not good, go to another one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talented people around here.
But check these guys out. Check out, I don't know if you can get into Laugh Shack, but DM him, ask him about it. Maybe he'll let you in.
It's wicked fun.
And we'll be right back. Thank you.